Hello and welcome to the new normal forecast for the decade 2020 to 2030. This is David Cameron Gikandi, and I'm extremely grateful and happy that you made the time to come here and watch this extremely important presentation. Now, I want to say something right off the bat before we get started. A lot of us have been affected, some of us quite negatively, by these coronavirus times, and some of us haven't been affected as much. But some people have really faced a very difficult time and are still facing a very difficult time, and we don't know how this is going to end. So this presentation is not meant to make light of something that is actually quite serious, because we are facing uncertain times, okay? So first of all, I'd like to start honoring the people who've suffered because of this, and the people who will suffer even more because of this coronavirus period. Now, having said that, we also have to remember and remind ourselves that every cloud does have a silver lining. And freedom is what you do with what's been done to you, okay? So this is why I'm making this presentation, because I think it's very important for us to look at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats presented by this unprecedented event. Because it's going to change not just the next few months, but the next decade. So let's get into that. And the answer that I would like us to answer, the question that I would like us to answer, is how can I use this time? How can you use this time? How can we all use this time to perfectly position ourselves and our world for when this ends? So ask yourself, how can I use this time to perfectly position myself and my world for when this ends? Now, I prepared this presentation for you in 5 sections, okay? The first section, we're going to look at the downside. We're going to look at the 16 industries and jobs most negatively affected by the coronavirus, especially right now. And that's going to help us, for those of us who happen to be in those industries, it's going to help us start to understand what we can do about this. And then after that, we're going to look at the 43 industries and jobs that have huge growth potential post-corona, okay? And we're going to look at the short-term, the immediate and short-term positions, or rather industries and jobs, and then we're going to look at the medium and long-term ones. Now, the medium and long-term ones have huge, massive potential and moves, and so I think that's going to be something very exciting for you to see. Then once we're done with that, we're going to look at the 31 areas that have massive change potentials individually and, as a society and as a planet. And we're going to, again, break those down into 2 segments. In the first segment, we're going to look at the areas that have already changed, in the last, couple of months or so since this pandemic or whatever we're going to call it started. And then after that, we're going to look at another exciting thing whereby we're going to look at the whole decade, 2020, 2030, because it's going to be a revolutionary decade from what I can tell from the research and the insight and the intuition and, the surveying that I've done. It's massive changes are going to be something that we're going to experience in the next 10 years. So that will also be something very interesting for you to consider. And then after that, we are going to get into 2 unique personal challenges. These are challenges that are going to face all of us individually over the next decade, immediately and going forward. We're going to have to embrace some cold, hard realities, and we're going to have to do quite a bit of self-reflection, and we'll get into that. And finally, to wrap up this presentation, we're going to look at what we can do to reboot and rebound, okay? Because, like as Winston Churchill said, never let a good crisis go to waste. Because a crisis, by definition, is gonna hurt, right? But at the same time, it gives us opportunity for change, for new. Remember, change means new. Change doesn't necessarily mean dangerous. Change simply means the old stuff is going to go, and it's going to go to a level whereby the new will bring a world whereby we hardly recognize the old world. Okay, that's the meaning of change. It literally wipes out segments of the old and brings new things we've never even conceived of. And those new things, just because we don't know what they are, doesn't mean they're threatening. But change happens in such a way such that we cannot recognize the past anymore because the new has replaced it. That is the definition of change. And I agree with Winston Churchill when he said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And here we've got Brené Brown. And I'll read her quote. She says, "We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal other than we had normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature." Brené Brown, thank you for saying that. All right, cool. So now if you're ready to get started, let's start right at the beginning. So the 16 industries and jobs most negatively affected. If you find yourself in any of these 16, the idea right now, the best idea I suggest to you is that you should consider pivoting, meaning you change the way you approach yourself and you apply yourself in these 16 industries, or you exit. So let's look at what they are. Now, if you're in any of this, and we'll go through them one by one, I suggest again, pivot or exit. Now, what does a pivot mean? We cover this more in that club that I mentioned before, the Reboot and Rebound Club. But basically, reskill means you go look at how you can add to your skills or learn a new skill that serves the new normal. You can reinvent yourself. You can redirect a skill, So maybe you are in HR in a certain kind of industry. You can redirect that HR to another kind of industry. Or maybe you had certain competencies that you built in HR you can use those same competencies in a different department. Or if you have your business, okay, you can reposition, you can reimagine. So these are things that you can do if you find yourself in these jobs and industries that are in already a downtrend. Reskill, reinvent, redirect, reposition, reimagine. And we can cover that in greater detail later. For now, we're just kind of like going through it real fast. Let's go through each one of them one by one. Now, the general job market, okay, that has already changed. And what I mean by that is that the idea of having a full-time job, okay, whereby you've got an employer, this is not going away completely, but to a large extent, it has changed, okay? And not just job habits, not just like the idea of working from home and so on, but the idea of a full-time wage is going to change for a lot of people, okay? Generally, even in industries that are not listed here. Because a lot of companies right now, in uncertain times, they don't have the ability to predict their cash flow and other positions far out in advance for them to be able to guarantee job security. So what we're going to start to see is that, and we'll look into this a bit later, is that a lot of jobs are now going to be on a per project basis, what we call the gig economy. So that a company will be very happy to pay you, maybe even more than they would pay you per hour, for you to come and just do a certain amount of hours or a certain project, and then, that's it, they release you, and you can work for several companies. So the general job market and the idea of job security, the idea of this one company giving you security for a lot of different industries is going to go away, and we're going to find new models, okay? So think Uber, but for everything, or think Airbnb, but for everything. So that's generally going to change. Not for every industry or every company, but we'll see that movement growing. The automotive industry is going to change as well, because people are generally are already moving less. There's less movement. You cannot stop movement completely, but there's a huge reduction already. And even after Corona, we will find that the work style and the job culture has changed. So by definition, there's less movement, and therefore there's less demand and so on for automotive products. And even the idea of people having many multiple cars and cars to do this and cars to do that, like that needs kind of like will reduce. So the automotive market is kind of going to change, not go away, but definitely change. Cinema, crowds. People are already skittish about crowds. Okay, so going to movie theaters, that's going to definitely really drastically reduce, I would say. And by extension, the film industry in general is also going to, we're also going to see massive changes there. And certain aspects of it are going to go down, okay, because of this virus. It introduces so many unpredictables. Media is not going away. Media is here to stay. In fact, media is going to grow. But the film industry, there's certain aspects of it that are going to go down, because of this whole crowding idea, or change dramatically. Construction as well is going to change in certain ways. Events and conferences, that's kind of like a no-brainer. Grouping, the idea of people coming together in groups is something that's scaring a lot of people, so especially very, very close. So even though you might have an event and a conference, the distance between individuals is going to mean a lot of different kind of changes. Okay, and again, this doesn't mean a bad thing, because if you're in the events and conferences space, you can reimagine your career and see how to do that live, through Zoom and other technologies that are going to start emerging. So this might not actually mean a down thing, because that means maybe now you've got a global audience, rather than, an audience in a hotel room in your local city. So it doesn't all mean bad. It just means you gotta really rethink things, real quick, sometimes radically. Finance and fintech are going to change massively, because banking and the monetary system are going through serious amounts of change, which we're going to talk about in the next section. So I'm not going to go real deep in here for now. I just want to say that if you're in fintech and you're in finance, you're in banking, that might get worse before it gets better. Okay. And then you got hospitality. And by hospitality, I mean hotels, obviously, restaurants, obviously. And to some extent, Airbnb. People are getting skittish again about crowding, together or sharing rooms, and so on. So, because they have this idea of, wanting things to be sterile. I don't know if somebody has been in a room before I walked in, somebody was in there and they had COVID, so I might be skittish about going to a hotel at the moment, but I'm not saying that's just going to end, but it's going to change. And for now, it's going to really tank down. And live sports, for obvious reasons, things that are, especially things that are in stadiums, again, that's kind of like in a downtrend at the moment. Local transport, and by that I mean things like Uber, those kind of services whereby you call a ride and the ride comes and picks you up. That's also a little bit shaky at the moment, or maybe a lot shaky. Logistics. Now, logistics are not all going to disappear, because essentials are still needed, so that's not going to go anywhere. But some non-essentials, we're going to find the logistics industry for those to kind of like go down. Luxury products. A lot of people right now are thinking about survival and about going back to good old basics. So even if they're not thinking about survival, they're thinking about basics, Right now, people are not thinking so much about bling and showing off and being the latest, hottest thing. They're kind of thinking about family, what matters, the environment, whatever, what's going on with our politics and so on. So the conversation has really shifted from bling to meaningful. The oil and gas industry, definitely changing for obvious reasons. Planes are down, cars are down. But also, as we'll see later when we go into the other modules in this presentation, we're shifting our basis and our understanding of energy. So oil and gas, we had a period where, a few weeks ago, where oil actually went to minus, to a negative pricing, and then it kind of rebounded up. But generally, on the long haul, the oil and gas industry is kind of like a dinosaur. So yeah, the old glory that it had is going to start going away. Real estate, obvious reasons, kind of going down because of, jobs, because of the monetary situation we find ourselves in. And, it's a whole new world. So the thing is with real estate is that it's always forever going to be something we need. We all need land. You cannot put your body in water, so you need land, you know what I mean? But then the whole inflated prices and the whole, the uptrend, for now that's going to relax for a while, because we've got a lot of issues with debt, with a lot of things right now that bubble kind of might burst for a little bit, but it will be back for sure. long term. Retail, that's kind of obvious. We already know that retail has been hurt real bad. Tech and gadgets, a lot of tech and gadgets. People don't care so much right now to have the latest this, the latest that. Not so much. So essentials, yes, but getting the latest 1.1 upgrade from the 1.0, not so much. Although gaming is growing, because people are at home, obviously. And obviously travel, business and tourism, both for business and for tourism, for work and for play. Travel for now is kind of like a dead duck, and it will start to grow, but it's going to take a while to grow. And so the idea here is to get yourself into a situation that is going up rather than going down. And so you need to tell yourself some cold hard truths. You need to come to terms with what's happening. And some people are just kind of like saying, wanting to bury their head in the sand like an ostrich and just go, I'm just going to stick through this until, fight through this until it gets better. Yeah, some things will get better, but some things won't. So, they say dig your well before you need the water, plant the tree before you need the shade. Some people who are holding on and saying, I'm just going to fight this wave until we get out of it. Some of those people are going to crash and burn, because sometimes you can't fight the ocean. Sometimes you cannot fight the ocean. I'm not trying to be hopeless, but sometimes there's some things you have to face the facts about. Some things will rebound, some things will not rebound, and some things will be better than we've ever imagined them to be. So that's the nature of change. Some things will die, some things will come back, and some things will be better than we've even imagined them to be. Okay? Now, talking of better than we've imagined them to be, let us now go to the next section, whereby we are going to be looking at the 43 industries and jobs with huge growth potential post-corona. Right, the 43 industries and jobs with huge growth potential post-corona. Good. Let's start with the immediate and short term. A lot of these are just going to be obvious because they've already happened and they've already said to happen. These are the ones that are already going up today as we speak. Number one, the gig economy. Like we said before, we already have seen a lot of layoffs for millions of jobs, and we've already seen that the idea of full-time employment is going to change massively. Okay, so we will still have people full-time employed at certain companies, and that's not going to change. But there are a lot of other people that are going to have to consider the gig economy. Now, the gig economy, like we said before, is the idea that a company or a person or whatever, an industry hires people on a per job or per project basis to do a little task or a little gig or a little project or whatever. Okay, so think Uber or Airbnb, but for everything. Okay, now we already have very, very, very popular platforms such as Fiverr and Upwork that already are handling this. We're just going to see this grow, just like we've seen Zoom grow. Digital products are already doing well, but they're going to grow massively. Digital products are going to become even bigger and bigger and bigger. And we're not talking about just, courses, training, teaching, and online coaching and ebooks and that kind of thing, because definitely we're talking about that. That's also going to grow. Online coaching, training, teaching is going to grow massively. But by digital products, I also want to add things such as we're going to start to see a new range of downloadables. Like, for example, you download a plan to 3D print your own product. So instead of going to a shop and buying a product, you print that product yourself. It's called 3D printing. And we'll look at that in a little bit. But and all sorts of other digital products, from entertainment to education to digital products. The idea of digital products, idea of apps, software, whatever, it's going to just massively explode. Okay, it's going to replace a lot of physical products. So like I said, that's going to grow. Online coaching, training, and teaching is going to grow massively. Massively. That sector is going to grow so massively in terms of billions of dollars per day. That's how big that's going to get. We've got gaming. Gaming is going to grow because people are just at home wanting to be entertained, obviously, and to play in a social and communal way within the house and also outside the house. That's one way we can relate right now. Investing is going to change radically, and it's already changing. A lot of people are taking interesting profits by taking interesting positions right now with what's going on. But the whole nature of investing as a whole in the immediate and short term is going to change. In terms of asset classes, now a lot of people are starting to look at Bitcoin again, because that's a very interesting safe haven when right now the financial systems are kind of shaky. Gold, maybe. But physical gold is very hard to come by nowadays. You got all this like digital gold online. Nobody knows whether it exists for real or not. But whatever. And other aspects of investing are going to change, obviously, because the nature of savings, money, credit is changing already. Okay, home gardening. People are going to start getting into that a lot more. Just like they're going to do home fitness and home sports. Okay. Home fitness and sports, I'm already seeing as I take a walk every evening, and I'm already seeing a lot of people, they've converted their garages as I walk by into little mini gyms, and they're doing it with family or with neighbors or whatever. Homeschooling, even though people are going to go back to school after Corona, there's still a lot of homeschooling going to be going on, because remember, this coronavirus thing is something that even as we figure out how to treat it, how to, live with it, manage it so that it just becomes another common nasty cold instead of something that actually kills you, by the time we get there and everything, a lot of people and parents will be thinking, I'm just going to teach my kid at school or whatever, at home. And the education system that we've got right now, it's an industrial era education system that was designed in the 1800s for people to come out and go and work in factories. So, first of all, it's outdated. Secondly, it's not built for homeschooling. So that whole space is going to change, the kind of curriculum, the way things are taught, and so on. Because the idea of a teacher sitting down at home and teaching people the old kind of industrial era curriculum stuff through Zoom, we already see that's not really working well. That's kind of like something we had to do when lockdown came in, but it's really, long term, it's rubbish. Okay, the do-it-yourself industry, Home Depot, Bunnings, those kind of things whereby you go and buy stuff and build it, build things by yourself, just because you need projects at home, and also because, the supply chains are going to be disrupted. We're not going to all rely on China as much as we did, so do it yourself is going to really come back in. So that's an exciting space. Mental health and wellness, massive space that's going to grow. We're already seeing an increase in people needing help because of isolation and lockdown and everything. But generally, we're all going to start accepting the idea that mental health is not something shameful to talk about. Because in a lot of the world, it's okay to talk about a physical illness. It's not okay to talk about some physical illnesses like cancer and AIDS. People are still shamed by that. And people are still shamed by talking about mental health and wellness and mental illness. That shame is going to become less and less and less. And that industry is going to massively blossom, both for individuals and for corporates. And then we got alternate energy. People are tired of oil and gas, man. For all sorts of reasons, supply chain, pollution, costs. So alternate energy is already increasing. First of all, starting with the low-hanging fruit, such as solar and so on. But and then with a lot of changes are going to come that way, and I want to talk about that more when we get into the long term. Okay, moving on. Alternate healing is also going to grow. Alternate healing, and I'm talking about anything outside of the pharmaceutical industry, everything from energy healing to homeopathy to all sorts of other alternate healing. That's really growing. To nutrition, using nutrition as healing, that's really growing. People are starting to wake up. The insurance industry is also going to grow immediate and short term. To be honest with you, I didn't quite understand why that's going to grow, but I saw focus and the logic seemed to make sense in the way the insurance industry thinks, and so I put it in there. But I didn't quite understand myself why that's going to grow. Maybe because of there's more fear or something. I'm not very sure, but it looks like one of the growth industries. Healthcare, that's obvious. That's going to grow. It's already growing. You know what I mean? People are starting to become more conscious of their health now. They're even cooking at home, which is kind of interesting. Data sciences, and what I mean by that is artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and machine learning. That's already a growth industry today, and it's just going to keep growing more and more and more. And it's perfectly suited for this day and age, to be honest. Work from home and all that sort of stuff. Spiritual sciences, some of my favorites. These are going to mushroom and blossom. For example, what do I mean by spiritual sciences? Things like alternative healing, yoga, energy healing, ancient sciences, metaphysics, astrology, Vastu, Feng Shui, meditation and mindfulness. Ooh, that's big. Mindfulness, massive, gonna grow. And people, even scripture, people, there's sort of like a revival in religious circles. I've noticed people are going more to churches and so on, even though it's online. But yeah, there is some kind of renewed interest even in religion, organized religion. But more than that, in spirituality, even when especially when it's outside of organized religion. So personal spirituality, that's also going to go, massive. That's already growing. And affiliate marketing is which is also referral marketing. That's also going to grow. Network marketing, direct sales, as people look for alternate ways to earn an income, but also relate and be in a community and so on. So network marketing or direct sales, affiliate marketing, referral marketing, that's going to grow. And then there are others. So I just put in an etc. there, etc. Because there are other things. So these were just the main ones. But there are obviously many other little tiny niches that are going to do very, very well. So think niche. Think how can I solve a problem for somebody in my area or in my area of expertise or in my physical area. And it could be a very simple, tiny, one singular problem. You know what I mean? It could be so niched, but it's there because of this, in quotes, new normal. So there are many tiny little new niches, new ways of doing things that are just going to go, are already going well, but are going to go even better in the immediate and short term. Now that we've looked at that, let's look at the long term, because that's pretty exciting. That is extremely exciting. Okay? You ready for this? Cool. So let's look into the medium and long term now. And I gotta say, we are about to enter a decade of rapid change, massive change. We're about to see a technological revolution like none other that we've seen. I mean, the last 10, 20 years have been really dramatic. I mean, we've seen the rise of the smartphone and the internet and Wi-Fi. Like we kind of forget how the world was before all these things. Remember when we didn't have Wi-Fi and we didn't really have the internet like that. It was kind of very basic, and our mobile phones were basic. And then now we've got all these super smartphones. We've got like Netflix. We've got whatever. We've got rather interesting innovations, but they're not even that amazing when you think about some of the innovations, some of the greatest innovations over history, such as going to space, going to the moon, inventing the internet in the first place. You know what I mean? And many other interesting things, inventing aeroplanes and starting to get into flights, getting into cars, creating cars so that we don't longer use horses and carriage and everything. So we've had some very interesting industrial revolutions and technological revolutions that have really changed the world, but nothing like what we're about to see. This is going to be the big one, okay? So super rapid and super massive, almost dizzying technological change over the next 10 years. And so let's get into that. Now, to understand how this is going to happen, we sort of have to break this down into 5 components. The first 2 components are about the foundations, okay? What are the foundations that are already in place today? So not things that are about to come in the future. Things that are already in place today, foundations that are already in place today that are going to enable this rapid and massive technological revolution, okay? Then after that, we're going to look at the innovation accelerators, because we already have certain things already today that are going to accelerate and catapult us into this 2020 to 2030 innovation era. And by the way, coronavirus is sort of like a very interesting catalyst to all this. and we'll see how, and the only way to sort of understand how coronavirus fits into all this is when we get into when we go through the entire presentation, including all the segments in this presentation that are prepared for you. You're gonna see why coronavirus is sort of a cloud with a silver lining. It's gonna change things in ways we can't even imagine, directly and indirectly. Okay, so anyways, back to the screen. We've got the innovation accelerators. That's what you see in blue. These are things that are already with us here today that are going to help us accelerate and catapult innovation, okay? And therefore, because of the foundations, both technological and spiritual foundations, and because of these innovation accelerators, we will then be able to have this next generation of industries, okay? Now, this next generation of industries are going to cause some, obviously, very good things to happen to the planet, but at the same time, they're going to create some very interesting threats. And we have to be aware of these threats, okay? Because this is not a time to sort of sit back and hope the government gets it right or hope that the companies keep themselves clean. These are serious threats that involve each one of us, and we have to participate in, making sure that, the downside doesn't come and bite us in the butt. Okay, so let's get in. We'll start with the technological foundations. Here we go. We already have the internet. We already have social, social media and social media, social connections through all these gadgets and everything that we've got that ride on the internet, which obviously means brings us to mobile. We already have mobile, okay? We already have cloud computing, okay? And cloud computing is, if for anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's the use of hardware and software, like your mobile phone, to give you certain services that are so powerful. And the only reason this is happening is because those things are happening over the cloud. In other words, like maybe Google's super powerful computers are doing the bulk of the job for you and then just giving you your results on your phone. So for example, when you use the Google Maps, or you use some of these more advanced services and apps, the processing power of your phone is already powerful, but it's also using the processing power in the cloud, on computers and networks that are not on your phone, that are connected to your phone through the internet. Those facilities are literally going to help us do amazing things, because an individual in a small little village somewhere suddenly has access to massive supercomputing power through their mobile, okay? And then we've got big data. Big data is the idea of extremely large data sets that can be analyzed computationally to reveal patterns, trends, associations, and other things that we cannot, as human beings, otherwise find. So big data is the kind of data that Facebook is collecting, Google is collecting, Apple is collecting, through our mobile phones. And there's so much other data being collected. Right now it's through mobile phones, but later it's going to start being collected through other things called IoT, and we'll look at that in a minute, and will be analyzed by AI, artificial intelligence, and give us an amazing insight into ourselves and into our world and into our possibilities. So those 5 technological foundations are already there. We already have big data, we already have cloud, we already have mobile, social, and the internet. Now let's look at the spiritual foundations. We are becoming connected. Have you noticed that? We're already connected, technologically, but I'm talking about connected as a species. We are starting to feel like we are all one planet. Look at what coronavirus has made us to do. We are all collaborating on the internet. We're all sharing information. We're all we have this idea that we're all in this together. And when any one of us detects like something fishy going on, let's say with in terms of like, where did this virus come from, or what does it mean? We're all sharing this information together as well, So there's this connectedness that goes beyond technology. We are feeling as one united earth to an extent, much bigger extent than we used to 20 years ago. So there's that sense of a unity, oneness, connectedness. We're also awakening, this idea of being woke. So we're being woke to what's going on really in the world, what's going on in the governments, what's going on with companies, what's going on with different agendas, with media. We are also waking up spiritually, okay? So informationally, we're becoming less blind, but spiritually also becoming less blind. We're waking up to our humanity. And then there are energy shifts that are happening on the planet today that are making, you can feel them, and some of us can feel them more than others. The energy is shifting, the mass consciousness is shifting, the spirit of the earth, you could say, is shifting. So that's another thing that's another foundation that's going to really help. Now let's look at the innovation accelerators. Now this is going to get a bit heavy, so bear with me. But what the hell, we're talking about a decade, so a few minutes out of your day to understand a decade, it's really worth it, right? So what are the innovation accelerators? And just real quick, just so you can sort of get a bearing of where we are, we've looked at technology and spiritual foundations. Now we're looking at the innovation accelerators, okay? Now, the first accelerator is what we're calling a materials revolution. The way we understand materials, the building blocks of our physical universe, whether it's construction materials or clothing or whatever, is changing, is already changing already. And over here we've got, I'll give you some examples of material revolutions that are already happening and will accelerate even further. Biomaterials. These are biological or synthetic substances which can be introduced into body tissue as part of an implanted medical device or otherwise, maybe to replace an organ or to replace a body function or to enhance a body function, the idea of a superwoman or a superman or something. Biomaterials are already happening, Then you got graphene. Graphene has emerged as one of the most promising nanomaterials because of its unique combination of superb properties, It's not only one of the thinnest, but also one of the strongest materials ever. Okay, it conducts heat better than all other materials. It is a great conductor of electricity. It is optically transparent, yet it is extremely dense, and it can be used for a wide variety of uses. Okay, then we've got things like flexible solar cells, and that adds, can you imagine solar cells that are flexible? Right now we know of the really solid ones that you got to put on the roof of your house, but think of tiny little flexible ones that can go on your hat, on all sorts of materials. It's an amazing concept. Hemp is a very interesting thing because it was banned through a very sort of, I call it a heist. The process through which, if you trace history, through which hemp was banned, is very fishy. Hemp was if you look at history, hemp was the first billion-dollar crop. It could make 50,000 products. In history, hemp was the primary ingredient used for all sorts of materials and fibers and medicines. The United States Constitution is written on hemp paper. You know what I mean? It's an incredible thing. But it was I say illegally banned, because hemp, by the way, if you smoke hemp, it looks like marijuana, but it cannot get you high. It doesn't have the THC levels required to get you high. Yet it was banned because it looks like marijuana, which can get you high because it has a higher THC level. And so it was banned in the pretext of, saving the public health. But it's actually healthy for us. And the reason why it was banned is because with hemp, you cannot have a plastics industry. Plastics is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And if you have hemp, plastics go. A lot of pharmaceuticals go. A lot of fibers go, So 3 industries that are multi-billion-dollar industries today would not exist as they do if hemp was made legal. And yet it is the most bio-friendly product in the world that has so many uses. You can even make aeroplanes out of hemp. Like the entire plane can be made out of hemp except the engine block and the glass, on the windshield. So it's an amazing, amazing whatever. And we're going to see that coming back. We've already started to see countries legalizing the growth of industrial hemp. Countries such as Thailand, have started to do that. So, this is going to go somewhere. Then we got metamaterials. A metamaterial is any material engineered to have a property that is not found in naturally occurring materials. So in other words, man-made and amazing. So that's coming up already. Nanomaterials are extremely small, and that gives them a very wide variety of uses that we otherwise don't have access to right now. We're already seeing rechargeable metal air batteries. These are light, they're compact, and they have grid scale energy storage. grid scale. So not like mobile phone scale, not like Tesla car scale, but grid scale, storage capacity. Okay, we've got recyclable carbon fiber composites. We've got ultra-thin silicon circuits. Now these are tiny circuits that can be used in lighter and thinner devices, and these devices can have mechanical flexibility, and therefore they're capable of providing very high physical and computational performance. So this revolution is already happening. We've got the energy revolution, okay? We are going to abandon fossil fuels. Oil and gas are literally dinosaurs, and also figuratively dinosaurs in the fact that this is technology that could have been wiped out 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, okay? I mean, there's so many replacements. We can have power from magnetics. We can have power from, there's so many alternative options. Anyways, doesn't matter. This is not what this video is about. What I'm going to say is that we're going to find a renewed interest in renewable energy. But beyond renewable energy and wind, solar, whatever, beyond that, we're going to look at massive advances in in energy generation, storage, and distribution. We're going to look with people are already talking about something called the energy internet, okay? And then we're going to also start looking at free energy. Now I put that in quotes, but free energy means the environment around you, the air around you, contains more than enough energy to power your home, your car, your neighborhood. We have so much energy around us. Our problem is not that we don't have energy, it's the technology to tap it. You can tap energy out of the ethers, okay, with the right technologies. And that brings us to the release of suppressed patents. The Federation of American Scientists lists more than, or doesn't list, but has a record of more than 5,000 patents. Very high-tech patents that have been acquired by the military-industrial complex and the secretive arms of various governments, and suppressed in the name of, in quotes, national security. Whatever that means, a lot of it means that if these technologies were released, the world would be free, and certain powers wouldn't have the ability to do what they currently do. So these suppressed patents already exist. These technologies already exist. They're going to start being released. We'll see that happening over time. And I'm about to show you why that will start to happen. So if you hang around with this presentation, you'll start to see that coming through. And also we're going to find the release of top secret technologies. No, these are different from suppressed patents. Top secret technologies, where do they come from? Now, all over the world, we've got money that goes into corporations that create and invent things that we have no knowledge about. We don't know what they're doing. Okay, for example, look at this coronavirus. Some people say, it came naturally because somebody ate a bat in a market. Obviously, that's a cover-up story. Technically, scientifically speaking, you cannot have viruses jumping from one species to the other within such a short period of time. It could happen, but it would take ages, and not in the way this has happened. So there's a lot of human intervention in this. And this is an example of a technology that was built without our knowledge, and it escaped, and it's now hurting us. But when you look at the true scale of these secret technologies, it will blow your mind. And I'm talking about, let me give you an example. In the United States, for example, we have something called the black budget, okay? In the 1940s, they started a program whereby money would be allocated to the military-industrial complex, to certain defense contractors, for them to create certain technologies which, by law, Congress cannot ask about, Senate cannot ask about, even the United States President cannot ask about. Even the CIA and the FBI have no idea what these are. Very few people have access to these. That was the point of building this program. Now that they have no idea what these defense contractors built with this money, but obviously it built things from the 1940s to today. How many years are those? 80 years with billions of dollars and the most high-tech facilities to create things that you do not announce to the world. So just to put it in perspective, the technologies that you are aware of, the most advanced phone that you can imagine today in your hand is not the latest on the planet. It's probably using technologies that are 100 years or a few hundred years old. That is a scale of stuff that exists that we don't know about. Now, if you think I'm crazy saying these things, just look at Google patents, type in US Navy, and look at the latest patents that the US Navy has been filing. They include some very space-age Star Trek stuff, including what looks like an alien reproductive vehicle. In other words, a vehicle that operates as what we know of in the movies as a UFO. This is a patent that was issued by the US government to the United States Navy. You can look at it, verify it, and it's got technologies that are space-age. And that is what they're willing to expose. Imagine what they're not willing to expose. All these, when exposed, are going to catapult the world into an era that you cannot imagine. Now let's look at more normal stuff. We got 3D printing and manufacturing, okay? 3D printing, or otherwise known as additive manufacturing, is a process of making three-dimensional solid objects from a digital file. You can make anything from a tiny object to a motorcycle or even a house. You can print a house with a 3D printer. So this is very exciting stuff, and it's gonna grow because people are starting to realize we cannot just keep importing everything from China. I'm not trying to knock China, but it's just basics, right? First of all, that is a risky supply chain to just depend on one country for everything, okay? It just places everybody in a place of sudden risk. Secondly, it's bad for the environment. Keep shipping things across the oceans and dropping containers and polluting the ocean and everything. So the idea of every home having a little device that can print a whole wide range of things. So all they have to do is download the plan, put the little gels or whatever, the liquids in the printer, the 3D printer, and then press go, and it prints a product. It's very, very interesting, and that's going to grow. Artificial intelligence is also going to accelerate our innovation. AI, machine learning, which is like its sort of cousin, those are already growing. Blockchain. The blockchain is a game changer. In its simplest terms, the blockchain can be described as a data structure, so like a database that holds records in such a way that they're indestructible, they're fully transparent, and they're decentralized, meaning no one company or country or government owns that database. It's kind of like owned by the whole internet. And as long as the internet is running, that database is running. Nobody can corrupt it, hack it. You can't. Unless you turn off the whole internet, you cannot mess up this database. So that gives us a lot of opportunities. That's what Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies run on. That's why they are currency that is working and issued that does not depend on a bank or a government. Doesn't need a bank or a government and cannot be stopped by a bank or a government. That's a very simple example of what the blockchain does, okay? Cool. So we've got cognitive systems, and that refers to systems that, computing systems that learn. They can scale their learning. In other words, they can learn by themselves and grow. They can reason with a purpose, just like a human being, and they can interact with human beings naturally. Okay, so this is sort of like the opposite of a computer that has been explicitly programmed. Think of a computer that can learn and reason from its interaction with human beings and from its experiences with its environment. So that's the difference. The difference between AI kind of like looks at human thinking and then figures out how to solve very complex problems. So it kind of like. It kind of like focuses on accurately reflecting reality and providing accurate results. So AI is very different from a cognitive computer, which sort of focuses on mimicking human behavior and reasoning. Okay, so this is sort of a difference there. Maybe it doesn't mean so much to you, but whatever. Okay, then we got the Internet of Things. This is a very huge area. Now, the Internet of Things is simply a network of internet-connected objects. Okay, so objects that are, think of sensors in your car, sensors on your body, sensors on your watch, on your phone. Your phone and your watch already have sensors today. Sensors on the road, sensors in the air, sensors in the building. So sensors everywhere, okay? All those, and also your fridge, your computer, your television, all those things interconnected with the internet, and then they all share data, okay? They all share data. All these different devices and machines and everything and other things that have been planted on animals and people and so on, they all share data and they interact with each other without requiring a human to human or human to computer interaction. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? That these objects use the internet themselves and figure out what to do with it themselves without a human being getting in that equation. Okay, so the Internet of Things is like, think of it as a huge, massive railroad connecting everything. Okay, things, everything, everything from big things like planes and trains and ticket machines and blah, to weather reading things, to small little things like little sensors in your fridge, everything. So that's already there. It's already growing. Then you got nanotechnology, you got robotics. And so that kind of covers the innovation accelerators, materials, energy, release of technologies, and then, these other ones. Cool. So we've covered that. Now let's look at what those innovation accelerators are going to create in terms of next generation industry. So now we've covered the technological foundations, the spiritual foundations, and now we're looking at the innovation accelerators and what kind of industries they're going to create. So these are the kind of industries that they're going to create. Artificial general intelligence, artificial narrow intelligence, also known as weak AI, and artificial super intelligence. For those of you who are interested in knowing the difference, it's actually not part of this video, so I'm not going to go into the difference, but AI is actually delineated into 3 different kinds. Okay, so those are the 3 different kinds of AI industries that are going to grow. Just real quick, though, I can't help myself. Super intelligence means an AI that is way cleverer than a human being. Artificial general intelligence is sort of AI that is roughly at the same level as a human being. And artificial narrow intelligence or weak AI is AI that focuses on just one task. For example, facial recognition. Okay, on Facebook, right? Everybody knows that Facebook recognizes faces. So that's an example of AI, weak AI, because it just focuses on one thing. Okay, or Siri, or Ask Google, or Ask Siri. This is a weak AI. Cool. Then we're gonna see the automation of everything. We're gonna see autonomous vehicles. We're gonna see a circular economy. More and more of that, which is kind of very good for the environment because it kind of sort of promises almost 100% recyclables. And it's going to grow especially well with materials such as hemp. We're going to see the connected car. We're going to see connected healthcare. Then we're going to see decentralization of everything. And that's very important because one of the reasons why we have problems today is because of hierarchies, because of the pyramid structure of society. Everything is centralized, and then you got a small little 1% elite controlling the 99% of everybody. So the pyramid structure is part of the problem of society today. And now we have technologies such as blockchain, 3D manufacturing, and others that we're going to see that are going to lead to the decentralization of everything, which, as you can imagine, also changes politics and economics in a massive way. But that's going to come whether the powers like it or not because of the enabling technologies that we have and the waking up of consciousness. And we're going to see democracy 2.0 or other governance alternatives. We are already seeing that democracy is failing because a planet is too big. When democracy was invented by the Greeks way back, a representative, an elected official, personally knew his or her constituent members. They knew it, because at the time of the Greeks, the planet had maybe less than 30 or 10, less than 5 million people. The whole planet, not just in Greece. I'm talking about the whole planet. So Greece had a very tiny population. Like the city of Athens probably had a few 100,000 people, maybe. I don't remember, but it wasn't much. So a representative personally knew the people that were representing. Those people could personally go to that guy's house and tell them, this is what we want, and if you don't do it, this is what we're going to do with you. But now we've lost that. Now democracies are fast because we get to be given a couple of people. Every 4 years we're given 2 people. Hey, choose this person or that person, or maybe that person. And then we vote for people that have sort of been presented from us. We don't even know them. And then they go do whatever they want. And they serve other constituencies that are not elected, such as, lobby groups, multinationals, so they serve other people's needs and not necessarily the needs of the people who elected them. So democracy has been proven to have failed now because of the population size we've got, and it's actually creating a corporatocracy. That's what democracy right now does. It creates a corporatocracy, and tiny elite ruling everybody through different ways. So we're going to find a push for a new way of running things. Then we've got the empowerment economy. Basically, this thing of leaving some behind, the rich get richer, poor get poorer. That's kind of creating very serious tensions in the world, and they cannot go on forever. The energy internet, we mentioned it before. The energy internet is coming in a big, big, big way. So we already have the information internet. Think now the energy internet. So instead of moving information through the internet, we'll be moving energy through the internet. Well, through something that looks like the internet, but for energy. And we're going to see a lot of healthy life extension. Okay, we're going to see human-machine convergence. We're going to see a version of humans 2.0, which is, let's not get into that right now in this presentation. We're going to see a logistics internet, a maker economy. That's very much linked to the whole 3D printing thing. Money 2.0. The current financial system, first of all, it has a lot of inequities. It's got a lot of problems. And right now, because of all the printing of money, all the quantitative easing and all the money that has been printed because of coronavirus, the debt levels and everything, we can't fix. It's a system that is designed to collapse anyways. It's a system that is designed to have debt that cannot be repaid anyways. That's part of its systemic design. But now it's reached its limits. So when that breaks down, we're going to see a new definition of money. And I dare say cryptocurrencies, because of their ability to be programmed, are very much a feature of Money 2.0. And other things are going to be a feature of Money 2.0, but I would bet cryptocurrencies are going to be a big part of that. Maybe not the current cryptocurrencies, maybe a next generation of better cryptocurrencies that have been better designed and all that sort of stuff, but definitely cryptocurrencies are going to be huge. Maybe not the current ones. I'm not saying Bitcoin is the future of money forever. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying cryptocurrencies are, maybe not the current ones. Then we're going to see next generation education. We've already said and seen previously in this presentation how a current generation was designed to serve the industrial era, to produce people to get into factories. It won't serve us coming. I mean, just think of all the crap that we've been learning in school and look at what we've been mentioning now as the next generation industries. Does that sound like the education system today can serve this new way where we're going? No, that's gone. It's a dinosaur. It's gone. It's already too late for it. We're going to find radical life extension. There's a lot of interesting things happening in that space. We're going to see a sharing economy. And I dare say, and I'm going to actually add it here, sharing economy, maybe even resource-based. Which is a kind of deviation from the monetary-based economy. So it doesn't wipe out money, but it starts to go into a very different idea rather than just pure capitalism. Capitalism cannot work for life. It's already killing our planet. Sooner or later, it's going to, it doesn't matter that coronavirus made us stop what we're doing today. Something was going to make us stop what we're doing today, living the way we are. Because it can't go forever. We can't keep eating the planet until it cannot support us anymore. That's a stupid thing. So we're gonna have to get out of capitalism as we know it today. It was good for what it brought us, but it's also reached its limits. We'll find smart cities. Singapore is already leading the way in that. We're gonna find a smart grid, smart homes, and again, spiritual sciences are gonna grow even bigger, even way bigger than we've imagined. We're gonna discover things that we never thought were possible. Okay. So spiritual sciences are a massive growth area. They'll penetrate everything. The health industry, they'll penetrate everything. Spiritual sciences are just going to be big. Now, before we wrap up the new industries, I just want to mention that the United Nations has 17 goals and 169 targets to track those goals. And the United Nations goals that were adopted unanimously by 193 heads of state and other top leaders at a summit at the UN headquarters in New York in September of 2015. And these are goals to wipe out poverty, to fight inequality, and tackle climate change. And they're very, very, very interesting. They address the needs of people in both developed and developing countries, and they emphasize the fact that no one should be left alone, okay? They address social development, economic development, and environmental development. And this is something that a lot of countries have signed on, and I think when you combine them with these new next generation industries, it's very, and the foundations and everything we've seen, we're going to see a lot of, these are areas you can get into that we know the whole world has committed to heading towards. So that's very interesting. Now that we finished that, let's look at the three biggest threats that come with these new technologies, especially things like AI. That's a very, 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 very serious thing that we need to tread carefully with. Now, the first threat is if we just, as citizens of the world, allow corporations or companies to control the legislation and the narrative as to what these new technologies are going to be used for. Okay, we have this idea. Before we get into the idea, so that's the first threat: allowing corporations to control the narrative and legislation. Second threat is relying on the nanny government to determine our fate. Okay, relying on nanny government to determine our fate. Now, let's talk about those two together: corporations and nanny government. In the past, we've sort of had this very naive idea that the government is our nanny. It's there to look after our interests, and it will do just that. Truth be told, it has looked after some of our interests, but it's not there to look after all our interests. There are a lot of powers and forces that use government to do things that are against our interests. Everything from banning like, think about it. People go to school and we learn about everything except money. Money is not taught in schools, yet we are taught to go to school so we can earn money, but we're not taught money in schools. You know, it's actually illegal to teach money in schools, which is kind of weird, right? And a lot of legislations just don't make sense. A lot of legislations are just like there to protect. They harm the environment and they harm people. You know, especially chemical and pharmaceutical and those kind of legislations, they harm the environment and they're harming human beings, and they're protecting the companies that are actually creating this harm. So the idea that the government is your nanny and you can just go to bed and sleep and it's going to look after your affairs to the best of your interests is naive. It doesn't work like that. That's not the truth of the way things are. Okay, and also just saying, oh, let's just trust corporations to also do things in the best of our interests. We also know that's rubbish. It doesn't work like that. You know, we have to get off this idea. And we've already made mistakes. Let me mention a few things where we've made mistakes in this regulation. We already mentioned power of hemp and how we let that, be taken away from us way back. We already know how banking right now is just out of control, Banking is out of control. The bankers crashed the system in 2008. And what happened to them? Did they get punished for it? No, they were rewarded with bailouts. They got richer for crashing the system for everybody else. We already know that Big Pharma has done a lot of dodgy things. Big Pharma. We already know that Food Inc., with all the weird food that it creates, has done a lot of dodgy things because we just let it happen, okay? We know that big data is being collected by the giants like Facebook and Google, and we kind of hope they're going to use it to our advantage, but we've seen examples where that data has been sold to our disadvantage, okay? The military-industrial complex and all the wars it has started. Let me ask you, do you know anybody who wants to start a war? I don't know anybody who wants to start a war. There's no time that the people of one country look at other people of the other country and go, oh yeah, we need a war. They never say that. The people who started are, like a small little group of people that keep bringing new war, and every decade there's a new war. But it's not the populations that are asking for these wars. It's the military-industrial complex, because we let them. You know what I mean? we are, like Elon Musk says, we're already making huge mistakes with AI, letting these companies do whatever they want. Elon Musk has been trying to warn us against it until he's decided to join them. If you can't fight them, join them. But for the longest, he's been saying, don't let these guys just do whatever they want with AI. It'll come to a point where that gene will leave, get out of the bottle, and there's no way of putting it back in once it's out. We've got a problem with 5G. 5G, a lot of people think that it's a conspiracy. It's not. The term conspiracy theory is a shaming tool. Okay? So when you hear people saying, oh, people who's trying to stop 5G, they're just conspiracy theories, that is a shaming tool being applied to them. The point about 5G, and you can see very top executives, even from Microsoft, former Microsoft executives saying this, the problem with 5G is that it operates at a frequency level that is way too high for biological material, human being, animals, pets, plants. 5G operates at a frequency that destroys DNA and cellular structure. It's kind of like putting your hand in a microwave. Would you put your hand in a microwave? That's what we're talking about when you're talking about 5G, and we're kind of like letting it happen, you know? So this really has to stop. And then the third danger is allowing technology itself to overtake our own wisdom and our spirituality. That's how societies destroy themselves, when they allow their technology to overtake their spirituality and their wisdom. You know, there have been societies in our history, pre-Adamite societies, that have destroyed themselves through, all sorts of stuff, like the legends of Atlantis, the tales in the Mahabharata, civilizations that are ancient, that we have no history, no record of them anymore because they're self-destructed, So we've got an opportunity and a risk over there. Cool. So let's go back to our overview. And the next thing that we're going to be looking at is the 31 areas of massive change potential. The 31 areas of massive change potentials. We'll split this into what's happening immediately right now, even as we speak. And then we're going to look at the whole decade, the decade coming up, 2020 to 2030, because again, those are big moves happening in that space. Cool. So in the immediate term, we're already seeing business models have changed or are changing. And this is where, if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or whatever, or even if like you're starting to be an entrepreneur, your business model needs to address the new world that coronavirus has already decided to bring to us. Okay, education and training delivery has already changed. We saw people start to do homeschooling in a way that we never thought they would. And it's going to change even further. Expenses have dropped. Because of self-isolation and lockdown, people are not spending that much. So in a way, expenses have dropped. And it's kind of interesting because, we say that, money has dried up. The planet has more money today than it ever has had in our known history. I mean, we've printed trillions of dollars in the last few months, like money that didn't exist. So although there's no industry happening, people are not, trading, buying and selling as much. There's so much money on the planet today, more than ever. And our expenses have dropped. Now, that has a lot of implications. What will happen when the money starts to move later on? So, because some people right now are not getting an income, but some people have the highest savings I've ever had. So it's double-edged. Some people have more savings than they've ever had. Some people don't have an income. So it's very interesting to see where that goes to and what it means in the coming days. Anyways, family time has also increased. You all know that because now we're all locked in with our loved ones, or not so loved ones. Health consciousness has increased. People are more conscious of their health. They're cooking at home. They're thinking about being clean and all that sort of stuff. Internet usage has gone up the roof, and it's going to keep going up. There's less pollution. There's less environmental destruction. I'm personally very happy to see that all sorts of animals and creatures are starting to show up in the oceans, on our beaches and in our cities that were not being seen before. So the animals are enjoying the clean air, that they're having it good. So, and that's good too. I love when animals have a good time. Our goals have changed. Our priorities have changed. Our values have changed. We're starting to think more about the basics, the human fundamentals, and so on. And, what is important to us has changed, okay? We're starting to think more serious stuff, more valuable stuff. So priorities, goals, values have changed. That's important for you to think of if you're in any sort of service industry or you're in business or whatever. But even as an individual, it's important to reevaluate your life and think, what does this whole thing mean to me? So that's actually a good thing that has happened. Social interactions have changed. The good part of this is that we've sort of become united as a planet more than before. But the bad side is that we're now seeing less of each other because of isolation. So, and then the work style and the job culture has obviously changed. Even after coronavirus, we're not going to go back to the same old way we used to work. So many things have changed. Everything from commuting to working at home to what we can do, what we cannot do, free time, not free time. So many things have changed in that space. So that's a short list of the immediate things. Now let's look at the long-term changes. Watch out, big moves. This is going to be a revolutionary decade. It's a decade of uncertainty, of change, of pruning, of healing, and of new. And to understand all that, we're going to have to look at 4 core things that I've got here for you. Number 1, shadow governments are going to start falling. And get into that in a moment. Monetary and economic systems are going to be overhauled. There will be a fall or a radical change in certain industries. We'll look at which ones. And we're going to find that we have to come to terms with new levels of responsibility and accountability. These are some of the things coronavirus has started to bring to us now. Let's start with shadow governments falling. I love this subject. Now, let's first define what a shadow government is. What is a cabal? A cabal is not like some weird, again, the word conspiracy. No. A cabal in English simply means a government within a government. Even President Clinton said that there is a government within his government and he's not in control of that government. So this is not a conspiracy. There are people who pull the strings, who appoint presidents, who appoint whatevers, who own the systems that run the planet, whether it's media or banking or whatever, or certain decision or military decision making, whatever. They make decisions and plans that last 20, 30, 40, 100 years, and they see them roll out even as presidents are changed. President is like underwear, come in for a few months or a couple of years or 4 years and leave. But this other, the government behind the government, stays for generations. They see presidents come in, they put presidents in place, and then they kick them out or whatever. Somehow they do have a hand at this. Although we vote for people who've been placed there. Okay? And then once they're in, we don't have control of them. But these guys do. Okay? And when a president is a president, that doesn't mean he knows everything going on in the country. No. Why would you tell a temporary employee, which is what a president is a 4-year employee, everything about what you've been doing for the last 20, 30 years and what you're planning to do for the next 20, 30 years? Why would you tell them that? They're a stranger. They came in and they're going to be out in 4 years. Why would you tell them? Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? That one is naive, I think, in my opinion, and I apologize if that sounds insulting. One is naive to think that the president is the head of what's going on. The president is not the head of what's going on. And so the idea of shadow governments, of the deep state, which is another name of the cabal or the shadow government, whatever, is kind of well known. In fact, we have a guy called Paul Hellyer who was the defense secretary or the minister of defense. I don't remember what they call them in Canada. Defense secretary, minister of defense for Canada. And he outlines, as you can see over here, who in his experience as defense minister of Canada, comprises of the cabal, the secret government that rules the world. Okay? This is a man who's got no reason to hide and who's been in the highest levels of government in one of the top 5 countries of the world telling us this. Okay? So they're going to be exposed. And look, COVID-19 is a real disease. People are unfortunately getting very sick and they are dying from it. But at the same time, we're seeing another narrative coming out of this, which is suspicious. And a lot of us have seen evidence of it. For example, we don't actually really know where it came from. There's a lot of rumor that it came from our laboratory in Wuhan in China. There are rumors that it was also being developed before that in a laboratory in the United States, and before that it came from a military facility in the US. So from military facility in the US to that lab in the US, and then transferred to the lab in China in Wuhan, and then released, whatever. There's so many things we don't know, and there are right now currently inquiries for the truth to be released. And when we finally discover what really happened with this thing we're calling COVID-19, there's a potential that one or two major governments are either going to fall or radically change and become something we never even imagined they could be, okay? In a good way, okay? It's going to expose a lot of these shadow governments, a lot of the oppressive regimes. This is a trigger for a lot of what a lot of people have been waiting for, okay? Because a lot of these moves have been happening behind the scenes. Now we're going to see them transparently, okay? Now, what we can expect when this starts to happen is, obviously, nobody loses power willingly. So we're going to experience a final push, a final resistance from this shadow government or shadow governments, because it's not just one, there are factions. They're going to have resistance. They're going to push back. They're going to try and hold on to power. They're going to try and increase surveillance and control. They're going to increase censorship. We're going to see certain decisions within democracies that actually look like fascism, and dictatorship. And we're going to wonder whether democracy really is democracy for a while, because we'll be thinking, is this really happening? We might experience false flags. False flags are events that are sort of manufactured by, again, covert operations to fool us, to make us think one thing is the other. So false flags have been happening for years, but now we're probably going to see them break out a bit more often. There'll be more cover-ups. But eventually, these guys are going to lose because people have woken up. So COVID-19 is a very interesting catalyst in that space. Okay. Now let's look at the monetary and economic systems overhaul. Right now, our planet is ridden with unsustainable systemic debt, plus inequities. There are people who are really suffering for nothing. The planet itself doesn't have scarcity. There is more food on Earth being produced by the planet every day to feed everybody on Earth 2.5 times their needs, yet there is hunger. So it's not because that there's scarcity in the planet, it's because there's artificial scarcity in the planet. We have more than enough resources to do everything we need. The planet itself has everything we need, but because of artificial boundaries and artificial whatevers and crazy greed and weird systems that are broken, we have scarcity. Scarcity is man-made. It's artificial. It's not built into the planet. It's because of how we apply ourselves to the planet that we experience scarcity and inequities. But it's actually the planet itself it's a paradise that gives us more than we need. And hopefully, through this, we'll start to get back to that original paradise state, slowly or quickly, But in any case, one of the machines that is causing problems on the planet is the current monetary and economic system. There's nothing wrong with money. Money is just a medium of exchange. But the monetary system creating our money today is broken. And now with all the debt, all the money that's been printed, it has to collapse. And this is not my opinion. This is an opinion of a great many economists and even billionaires who study these things. Okay? So once that system sort of like has to break down, what is it going to be replaced by? So right now we're running a debt-based, privately owned fiat system in a capitalist environment. What does that mean? Our money comes from debt, whether that's treasury bills or bonds or mortgages or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's built on debt. It's privately owned. People think that the government owns the monetary system. No, the banks, private banks, are the ones that issue our money. The government issues less than 4% of our money. The rest of 96 is issued by private banks. So it's a privately owned monetary system, if you can believe that. And then it is not backed by anything. It's not backed by gold. A lot of people think it's backed by gold. Money is not backed by anything. It's just a theoretical concept. That's why we call it fiat. Okay? So it's possible that we'll change from that to something else. Okay? To something else. We might stop having it owned by the private banks. It might end up being owned by the government, or even better, by the public. And the government is different from the public, by the way. Or it could be decentralized and autonomous, like cryptocurrencies are, like bitcoins, are currently. Or it could be backed by, again, we could go back to backing it by debt. Or it could be backed by assets or by productivity or by whatever. So we have opportunities now to build a better system. Okay. And also we have an opportunity to change from the current weird capitalism we've got that is actually eating our planet like a virus. And we don't have to go into socialism or communism. No, we could invent something new, like a sharing economy, a resource-based economy, or a blend of capitalism and something else. But whatever it is, there's going to be an area of massive, massive change, especially once we start feeling the effects of all the new debt and printing and money that we've printed since coronavirus started in coming months and years. And then we're going to find alongside that, huge radical changes or even falls in the following areas. Big Pharma, okay? Pharma has been doing some good things for the planet and some very dodgy things, Big Pharma has created a lot of health issues, a lot of addictions, a lot of health issues, and so on. There's not been a lot of honesty from Big Pharma, okay? There's a lot of decisions that are made for profit, and they have also tried to kill a lot of alternative healing methodologies and said, every other healing is illegal except pharmaceuticals. So there's a lot of moves that Big Pharma has made that has been literally a crime against humanity. And so we're going to find Big Pharma changing, reducing its power. People are going to wake up. Food cartels, again, our planet is unhealthy. People know that. And we're going to start waking up to that, and we're going to, break again with the decentralization of everything. A lot of the food cartels are going to find that they have to start either serving the planet or they'll be dead dodos. They'll be gone like the dodo. Banking cartels, we've already talked about that. We'll see falls or radical changes in those. In fact, even Bill Gates himself is quoted as saying, and I know he's not very popular at the moment because of the vaccinations pushes, but he's quoted as saying quite a while back, I believe in the 90s, that we need banking, but we don't need banks. That banks are dinosaurs, something like that. And so they are institution of an old time. The military-industrial complex is also going to be revealed, and it will change radically, I believe. Maybe not without a resistance push, but it will change. That the concept we have today of borders and nationalism, will change as well. We'll be forced to change by the weather. We'll find weather situations that cannot be handled on a per country basis. We'll find many other food security, national security, global security, food security, and other concepts that problems and challenges that we'll be faced with that we will have to solve as a planet, and forget this whole, this is my border, that's your line, that's my side, this is your side. We're going to have to get over some of that to be able to solve some of our coming challenges. And that's a good thing. That's not bad. The whole idea that, one country is better than the other, or China is better than everybody else, or America is better than everybody else, or whatever, doesn't matter. Or, India is better than Pakistan, or Israel is better than Palestine. All that rubbish, because it's rubbish, is going to go, We're going to realize we're all members of one planet. It's our only home. It's one home. And if we don't look after it properly together, we're all in trouble. The idea of family, what it means, how it comes, what's a family unit, da, 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 da. So many changes are going to happen there. Idea of the education system, again, is going to change or radically, alter. Governance systems and politics, geopolitical power is going to shift a lot, in terms, like we're already seeing a shift already. But we'll see interesting moves there. Broadcast news and media, that's going to change a lot. Right now, there's a lot of bad news, fear, and manipulation coming out of the news establishments. And to be honest, not all the stuff that the media tells us is truthful, and we know that. There's a lot of it that's just pure fake, So either deliberately or simply because the presenters are incapable of making their own thoughts known because the owners want a certain narrative placed through, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Or maybe they don't have the ability to check the facts, or maybe it's not cool to go against the mainstream mentality of things. Whatever it is, this is going to change a lot. News and media is going to change a lot. It's going to become more benevolent, good news, inspiring, and so on. Health systems are going to change a lot. The environment and the weather, obviously, that's going to change a lot, and that will mean a whole lot of different things to us. Entertainment is going to change a lot. Religion and spirituality is going to change a lot. And dare I say, we'll have a brand new cosmic understanding of our place in the universe. We are already seeing very interesting revelations that, governments have already admitted now, today, that yes, UFOs are for real, for example. Like, they're openly saying that now, They're not hiding it anymore. So I feel that this will become more and more, the disclosure movement is going to grow, and we will start to realize we're not all alone, and that will mean a lot of crazy things to a lot of people. Some people believe we're all alone, and that will be a huge shock to realize we're not. It will be a huge shock the first day we see an extraterrestrial on public television, as we're introduced to that concept slowly, gradually, and so on. Because the disclosures have already started to happen. You can see by the moves that are being made today on the media and so on. But as these accelerate, that will create a very, very interesting new twist to everything. Everything. Cool. So, and now let's look at the last slide in this, which is the new levels of responsibility and accountability. We are all going to be pushed to take a stand on issues. We're going to be forced to take responsibility and decision. Okay? Again, like we said, if we let these companies and countries sort of dictate the narrative of where all these new technologies are going and so on and so forth, we will regret. Like, coronavirus is going to teach us that we cannot just close our eyes and, ignoring what's going on with our planet and hoping the nanny government and the corporations make purely benevolent decisions. Okay, so we're going to be forced to take a stand on issues. Even now, as we figure out where coronavirus came from and bigger, deep, not just where it came from, why it was built, who built it, and so on, we're going to start to realize we're going to have to really, that when we snooze, we lose our freedom, we lose our health, and we become enslaved. You snooze, you lose, So we're going to have to start making ourselves accountable and and governments and companies accountable. So we're no longer serfs. We're no longer like sheep being led around, by powerful forces. No, we're going to realize the massive strength that we have in unity. Okay? We're going to realize soon that 7.5 billion people cannot be controlled by a handful of people if the masses actually know what's going on. In other words, they start becoming awake. And then they drop the labels that have been given to them that separate them. This idea that, oh, I'm black, or I'm white and you're black, or you're white and I'm black, and or I'm gay and I'm not gay, or I'm Christian and I'm Muslim and I'm Jew and I'm not. And, all these stupid labels that have served to divide us, deliberately given to us so that we remain divided. Oh, I'm Kenyan, or, oh, no, you're Somali. All these labels, that separate us, we're going to realize they're just there for divide and conquer purposes. And that when we realize we are not defined by these labels, we are one humanity, we realize we have the power. We do need companies, we do need governance, but we cannot just let them do whatever, okay? Because that will destroy us as a human race. So this is not about being rebellious. It's about the practicalities of keeping the planet and the human race alive and healthy. It cannot be done if we're just complacent, acquiescent, And then I believe that we're also possibly going to see trials of certain individuals for crimes against humanity, as we see the fall of these shadow governments and what they've been doing over the last decades secretly behind the scenes, whether it's causing wars or doing whatever, or tampering with the food, or whatever. I think we'll find a lot of crimes against humanity trials happening, just to sort of flesh out the system. Like, for example, when South Africa became free, Nelson Mandela had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission going on. When World War II ended, there were the Nuremberg trials. That's what I'm talking about. I think we'll see a bit of that. Then after that, we're going to see a major redistribution of power, from personal power to national power to global power because of all this. So we're in very interesting times. This decade is going to be a very, very, very interesting decade indeed. Good. So now that we are done with that, we can go to the 2 unique personal challenges. Okay. 2 unique personal challenges that we all have to face in the coming decade. Let's start with the cold, hard realities that we'll need to embrace. The first reality to embrace is that the world has changed forever. Okay? And this is just the beginning. You know what I mean? So, here's the thing. When things like this happen, they don't go back to exactly the way things were. We're not going back to exactly the way things were. That's not going to happen. There's no going back to exactly the way things were. That's just not going to happen. And if somebody is fighting with that reality, with that concept, then it might be a very uphill battle to try and keep the old world, to bring back the old world. It just can't, And the world has changed. That's it. And this is just the beginning. Now, the old has to fall away to make place for the new. And we're in the crossroads of that change. The decade 2020 to 2030 is a decade of change, of the old falling away and the new coming into place. So the world from 2030 will look very radically different from the world before Corona. But change doesn't happen instantly. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. There's time, there's time to process these kind of things. And so right now we are at that crossroad, and it divides us because it's difficult. There are some people who want to hold on to the old, and there are some other people who want to embrace the new, and there are other people who want to embrace the new super fast. And some want radical change, and some want little bit minimal change, okay? So that's kind of dividing us as a population or as a planet between, those two camps, the people who are scared of the change and the people who are way too excited of the change. And at the same time, anytime there's change, or there's a radical revolution in anything, it brings up old bad shit, okay? Just think, every time you've had a crisis in your life, what has happened? After the crisis, you might have looked back and went, oh, I'm glad that crisis happened to me, because now I'm in such a better place. But during the time of the crisis, I hated it. I thought it was the worst thing in the world. I thought my world was ending, okay? Because change often brings up old bad shit to conscious awareness. The old comes up, it might even resist, and then we get an opportunity to learn from it and release it, and then that makes space for the new. So some things might get worse before they get better. And what we are being presented with is a crisis in the collective consciousness of humanity, of the planet as a whole, because of all the things that we've been looking at throughout this presentation, right? But after that crisis of the collective consciousness, we will be able to then experience a massive positive shift in mass consciousness. So in other words, although we are afraid of these changing times, and it's almost natural to fear uncertainty. It's not logical, but it's natural. You know what I mean? We are afraid of the uncertain. The uncertain often brings us good things, but we're afraid of it. So it's not logical to be afraid of the uncertain, but it's natural. We're all afraid of what's around the corner, even though what's around the corner might be some nice ice cream. But until we go around the corner and realize, oh, it's nice, we tend to be afraid of it because we can't see it, right? We have to come to a point of understanding that this is something massive that's happening to us as a planet, and we have to come to terms with that, okay? And there are psychological things, there are things you can do as an individual to be able to handle your fear of uncertainty better, to be able to handle change better, so that instead of it being a struggle and a confusing thing that gives you suffering, you can actually enjoy and have a good time with this change. It is all about how you see things. There are mental health methodologies that can actually help you enjoy a transition of chaos and uncertainty rather than be made to suffer for it. And we talk about that in the materials that we've got for you. We actually address this idea of taking change, as a positive thing and actually enjoying it and actually making the best out of it and actually coming out bigger, better, stronger out of it. You can do that. So what I'm trying to suggest to you is that although we are facing these cold, hard realities, they are not negative realities. We can make them positive if we know what to do with them, okay? I'd like to say as well, adaptation is the key. We have to learn how to go with the flow. And the faster one adapts, the better. So in this particular case, we can say speed is God. The faster one embraces change and adapts in a functional way, the better. So the more one resists the wave that resists the ocean, the more that ocean crashes upon them. But the more they ride the wave, that wave just gives them a free ride into a cool future, you could say. Now, another thing that we'll have to come to terms with is that entrepreneurship might be forced upon a great many of us. So some people right now are employees, they were enjoying the job security, but job security is going to a place where it's going to be even less, okay? In some industries, it will be even more. So, in some of the new growing industries that we looked at before in a previous segment, there'll be a lot of job security there. But in a lot of the old industries, job security is going to become less and less, okay? And then the age of the nanny government and the nanny company is going away. And so all this combined creates a situation where some millions of people are going to be forced to be entrepreneurs. Whether that means they get into the gig economy or they start some kind of business or they simply just, provide their services on a per hour or per project basis, whatever. But there'll be that idea of forced entrepreneurship is going to be there. So that means that if you find yourself in a forced entrepreneurship place, you're going to have to acquire yourself some new skills, some new marketing, sales, whatever skills to market yourself, to get yourself through the door. And these are not difficult. Again, we provide these. We provide a bit of the training for how to transition and how to pivot in our Reboot and Rebound Club. But wherever you get this training, it's important to recognize that entrepreneurship is a skill set. It's a lifestyle that is different from being employed. And if you find yourself in a position of forced entrepreneurship, your best bet is to just gear up and go with it. It might be scary at the beginning, but it could be the best thing that happened to you. It depends on how things go for you, and how you approach it. I'd also say that this is a wake up slap from nature. Okay, we've let, again, the nanny government and the nanny company lead us astray, and it's our own fault. We've come to a place where we've destroyed a huge part of our environment. Okay, a lot of our environment has been degraded and so on. Okay, we've disregarded the environment. We've allowed inconsiderate mass consumerism. We've allowed dumping of plastics and toxins and everything. We've lived unconsciously. We've allowed massive, inhumane keeping and slaughter of animals, and that has affected us in our personal health, but also with deforestation. It has created a lot of deforestation, greenhouse gases. This whole livestock industry and the idea of, we treat these animals really, really badly, and we pretend that it's not happening, and it's destroying our home, it's destroying our bodies. We're gonna have to wake up to these facts, and even if we want to continue that lifestyle, we're gonna have to figure out how to do it in a more responsible, mature way. So it's not about becoming vegan. It's about becoming humane and thinking about what you're doing to your body and your planet. Okay, so individually, so this is not something for the government to fix or the companies to fix. This wake up slap from nature is something that's going to affect each one of us personally. So we might as well take responsibility personally. Okay, there'll be no one to blame. There'll be no government or companies to blame at the end of this. So that's very interesting. Something very interesting that is happening. We as a human race, we believe in this authority myth. We have an addiction for approval, and we tend to acquiescence. We tend to accept things reluctantly, but without protesting. So something we feel is not good for us, we accept it anyways, and we don't really protest or enough to make change. So we allow really terrible things to happen to us, and nature's gonna give us a wake up slap, so that one way or another we realize we have to be individually responsible. Okay, individually. Okay, and the final thing, the final cold hard reality to embrace is that, I say this in quotes, they are trying to control what you see, what you believe, what you think is true. It's not a secret anymore that there are corporations, there are shadow governments, there are groups that use the media or whatever it is to control what you see, the truth that you believe in. Okay? Look at what's happening right now. We're finding it so hard just to figure out a lot of things with coronavirus. There's so much fake stuff coming out from, bloggers, YouTubers, but also the so-called official media, the big brand media. They're also giving us a lot of fake information. So there's agendas that we're going to have to wake up to and understand that your mind, your perception, your belief system is being manipulated. Okay? And it's not being manipulated for your good. And so these are things we'll have to accept and understand and wake up to and do something about. Okay? So as you can see, this is a very interesting decade we're going into. It really, really pushes us personally to understand how responsible we are. And even if we pretend we're not, we will still feel the effect of that choice of choosing to not be responsible. Okay? Now let's look at self-reflection to be done. Here's some questions that you might have to ask yourself in these coming times. First, am I willing to redefine myself? Am I willing to redefine myself? We've already seen how the world is changing. And so your old self, parts of your old self may be outdated for this new whatever. And I'm talking about, beliefs or skills and things like that. You have to ask yourself a question such as, am I willing to take responsibility for the world at large? At my own personal level, but am I willing, or am I still willing to lay back and let the nanny state and the nanny company look after me, and they're not going to do that anyways. You have to ask yourself, what do I need to let go of? And I mean mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, what do I need to let go of? And am I willing to let go of it now if it's something that I have to let go of? Okay? What am I willing to embrace? And the larger question, who am I? What am I? What do I stand for? What is my truth? Okay? Do other people define me? How much am I defined by others in a way that I'm not even conscious or awake to? Should they define me? Okay? Should I let people make decisions, life and death decisions for me about my body, about my planet, about what we do with crazy technology such as nuclear weapons? You know what I mean? Should other people define me? And then another question is, am I willing to drop the labels that have been given to me, the labels that separate me from others, whether those are racial labels or sexual labels, whatever. There's a lot of agendas being thrown into play to keep us fighting each other, fighting each other. These labels don't come out of nowhere, like just by pure chance of evolution. They're engineered, they're seeded, they're promoted through media and so on into the public to keep us fighting each other. So am I willing to drop these labels? Okay. So this is a decade that's going to help us or force us to integrate ourselves with ourselves, first of all, and then integrate ourselves with others. So in other words, we're going to have to understand the idea that we are sovereign beings, but also that our neighbors and everybody else is a sovereign being. So we're going to have to understand that we have to come to a place where we accept ourselves fully as we are, and so not try and, copy everybody else, but at the same time allow other people to be who they are. So there's this idea of unity within diversity. Oneness is our strength, yet diversity is our strength. So that's a very interesting place. Diversity is our strength and unity is our strength. So if you try and change somebody else to be like you, you're trying to kill diversity and they will fight back. So that's not a good idea. These were the labels were coming in and dividing us. Okay, so we have to accept, not reject what is, people who are different from us. Accept each other. Yet at the same time, be willing to be unique, but at the same time, understand that we are all in this together. So, that unity within diversity, that unity within sovereignty, that's a very interesting lesson we're going to have to learn as a human race. Another question, how do I keep myself in relation to other people? Oh, that's actually the same question we had asked, in relation to others, other people, other societies, other nations, the masses and so on. Very important question. If you answer this wrong, you end up having war. If you answer it correctly, you end up having super peace and amazing opportunities for progress. Okay, so this one question can either end us in trouble or in a golden era of humanity, whereby peace is only the beginning. Once we have world peace, then we can really start to do amazing things. So peace is not the end goal. Peace is the beginning goal. Once you've got peace, you've got a platform to do amazing things. You've got synergy. You've got, amazing power. So, another question, how do I look at 2020 and beyond as an opportunity for wide open positive changes instead of lamenting it as a negative loss? Okay. Another question. By the way, that question literally makes you understand yourself either as a victim or as a creator, as somebody who's proactive or somebody who's reactive, as somebody who sees the beauty and opportunity in things versus somebody who sees the doom and gloom. Very interesting question, okay? Then another question is, how do I get going? How do I get started without trying to get it all perfect? Just do it, How do I get balance? How do I get positive and minded and positive in spirit and take advantage of the silver lining in this cloud? Because yes, it's a challenging time, but it has a silver lining. So these are very, very deep questions we individually have to ask ourselves, individually and collectively. It would be good if we start talking about this in open public forums. It's very, very powerful. And now we're almost at the end of this presentation. So what I'd like us to do is, again, to revisit Brené Brown quote. Read again. We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. I love that quote, and I thought it would be good to close with this. And I also want us to remind ourselves the words of Winston Churchill: never let a good crisis go to waste. Yes, it's a crisis, yet it hurts in some places, but you know what? If don't try and change what you can't change. If it's already happening, it's already happening. If we already have a virus that's not good for our health, whatever, it's there. But what can we do with it about it now that we're where we are? How can I use this time to perfectly position myself and my world for when this ends? And to that end, what I've done is we've put together a club. We're calling it the Reboot and Rebound Club, and I would like to invite you to this club. It's an online membership community where our goal is not just to survive the crisis, but to actually thrive in the crisis and post-crisis, to come out of this better, stronger, fitter, healthier, more humane, more abundant, okay? So instead of coming out of this crisis broken, we come out better. The concept of being anti-fragile. It's something that grows better because of pressure. So that's what this whole club is about. And we have training, resources, and a community. And we keep adding to it every month. And it's absolutely brand new. And it's all about getting together and working out ways to not be a victim, but be a creator, and use this opportunity that has been given to us by the universe for the greater good of ourselves and our loved ones and much more. So I welcome you to it. Please have a look at miracles4.me, www.miracles4.me, and you can have a free trial of a lot of the materials that we've got there. So come on in, give it a free go. Should be good. Thank you so much. Bye, and see you in the club.